Give me a little groove, dude. Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. It's the show where your questions make the show. If I don't have questions, I don't have a show. This is for January 2025. Happy New Year to all of my subscribers and friends and people that watch this show. 2024 was my 7th year of doing YouTube officially. It's been quite a journey, a lot of fun. I'm approaching 3 million views. I'm approaching 10,000 subscribers. Possibly by my 8th year of doing Ask Earl Anything, which will be officially in February of 2025, maybe we'll have hit those milestones. But for today, this is now January 4th, I have not hit those milestones yet. But I am looking into the new year and what needs to change and what I can do better and what this channel is about. And I can tell you I'm not going to redefine this channel as a fishing channel or some kind of a travel channel or change into a music review channel, because those aren't things that I am. But I do want to continue to have a strong drumming community presence, and I kind of know who my community is. And with that being said, my community, I have some young guys that watch me, younger guys that are inquisitive about how classic rock, pop, 60s and 70s, some jazz, big band stuff that I do, funk, fusion, those kinds of things. I have some younger guys that see that and want to see the old school approach to these things, because there is a new school approach to things. The younger generation today that are millennials or Zs or whatever we call them, I mean, they've got their own form of fusion today that are going on. And I mean, 2012, I remember Snarky Puppy. They may be old now, you know, but you got like the Snarky Puppies, the Scary Pockets. There's another one like Scary Pockets, you know, that are out there that just great funk fusion, taking the classics and twisting them a little bit. There's a lot of that kind of music in your generation today. But I play the older stuff. Like this year I spent some time doing some Chick Corea, Return to Forever stuff, which was a lot of fun to do. But I have a following mostly of guys that play classic rock or soft rock or adult contemporary, or the new term yacht rock. By the way, I saw the yacht rock movie on HBO. I recommend it to everybody to watch, even though Rick Beato took exception with the yacht rock term as the label of the movie. And you have to watch the movie to understand where yacht rock came from. It came from a bunch of guys making fun of this music in some satire videos back in the early 2000s. That ended up on YouTube. So there's like a yacht rock documentary videos that were kind of like kitsch. And they came up with the term yacht rock, they called it. But the music of yacht rock is definitely the stuff I've played a ton of. And I played a lot of music they don't consider yacht rock, that's on the fringes of yacht rock, which is called soft rock, adult contemporary, whatever you want to call it. Labeling music's the hardest thing in life right now. I don't particularly like labeling music. I like playing all kinds of music, and I grew up in a time where I was taught you play all kinds of music. So a lot of the older guys that watch my channel, they grew up in a time where they watched a lot of music and listened to a lot of music and relate to the older music, and that's what they want to play. As you get older in life, what you find out is you want to play the music of your youth. You know, you'll play the music of your parents, So if you're younger, you may be playing this music because it's the music of your parents. Maybe you grow up on it. My daughter Sandra grew up on the Beatles and Billy Joel and Chicago. So that's ingrained in her. She loves that, but she's also got her own music that she grew up with. Same with my son, my other daughter Bethany. She's got her genres of music that she loves. But they all remember the classic rock and the pop music of the day, or the yacht rock of the day, or whatever I listen to in the car, which, the Billy Joels, the Doobie Brothers, the, Chicagos of the world, and everything in between. And they all got exposed to it because they were in a musical family where mom and dad sang and played music and had bands and had to play this music for weddings and parties. So all this to say is, the guys that follow me love the music I pick and the choices I make, and I'm starting to repeat things now. I call them revisited videos. The reason why I'm revisiting things is because I'm running out of cool music that I want to play that fits that genre that I love to play. So I'm trying to find a new direction for my channel other than doing drum covers. And I was thinking about 2018, the year that I actually started doing Ask Earl Anything. And one of the reasons that drove Ask Earl Anything into having so many episodes, because the first year I did almost 52 episodes. One of the driving factors was YouTube took away monetization from me after they gave it to me. So I hit the 10,000 views or whatever I needed to hit, which I think that's what it was. I think you had to hit 10,000 views and you can monetize your videos. So I was already monetizing my video about church music, being a drummer, church drummer. And I had one on Paiste cymbals, and I had one on my favorites, in search for the perfect ride cymbal. I have a couple videos that people have been watching for years. Nothing that's viral, but they're in the tens of thousands. I've got to have 20 or 30 tens of thousand videos out there. Well, I was monetizing those videos very early on, and then in 18 they took it away. And when they took it away, they said you have to have 1,000 subscribers and you have to have 4,000 view hours. Well, that's right around the time that I had about 400 subscribers. I just won Drum Cover of the Year in 2017 on January 1st, 2018. I won that contest, won $100. And I was getting a lot of questions from viewers, and I figured I would just start talking about drums and their questions. That's where Ask Earl Anything came from. And I was presumptuous enough to call it Ask Earl Anything, which I've been told is presumptuous by guys like Dave Bateman and others, and there's a lot of ask me a question videos out there on YouTube. A lot of guys do this. This is not exclusive to Earl, but Ask Earl Anything's been around for almost 8 years. And what happened was I started doing it once a week. And the reason I was doing it once a week was because I was getting a lot of questions on my videos I was putting out. I was about putting out 4 to 5 videos a week at that time. It wasn't every day, but it was 4 or 5 a week. And one of them was Ask Earl Anything. And it grew my watch hours considerably, because my Ask Earl Anything shows have always been 20, 30, 40. Now they're about an hour, because I take once a month I do this. So I'm starting to, this is a question to you guys, answer the question, and of course, please like and subscribe. I said that early in the show now. I rarely say it at all, but of course, please like and subscribe, and share if you like. But here's a question to you all, and I'd like some answers, so if you guys can just even give me an answer when you say, hey, great show, yeah, I agree with you on this. Do you think I should do more Ask Earl Anythings, like twice a month or more? That's the thing. Now, of course, the questions are a lot less these days, because most of you that follow me, you've asked all the questions you ever wanted to have answered. Which brings me to the next question, which is, I'm trying to find a different content stream than just playing covers. I'd like to share lessons, but I feel there's so many guys that do drum lessons out there that I'm getting into an area where, like, I'm going to be dealing with the pro lesson guys, and they're going to be saying, well, you shouldn't really be talking about this, or there's a better way to do this. I'm not looking about talking about a better way, but I'd like to give you some of my concepts that I've learned from playing other people's music. So I'm thinking about a series about the concept of famous drummers. Like, this is the Hal Blaine concept, or this is the Jim Gordon concept, or this is the Jeff concept. Now, a lot of guys have analyzed their playing and analyzed their most famous beats. But if anybody talked about their concepts, like what made them do the things they did, and a lot of it has to do with the opportunity of the music at the time, reacting to the music, their influences. And sometimes you get that in the instructional videos, and sometimes you don't. So I'm thinking about a series on that, or maybe taking one of those concepts and putting it in an Ask Earl Anything and do a couple questions, make shorter Ask Earl Anythings once or twice, at least 2 times a month instead of once a month. Haven't gotten there yet. We'll decide after February. I'm looking for some feedback from you. But lessons, different lessons, if you guys were to say, hey, how do you do this? I could possibly come up with a lesson for that. You know, or how did you approach this to get to this part in this song? Maybe I could do more of those. But I'm trying to find some new ways, new things to do. Because I can tell you, I'm not spending as much time doing drum covers, believe it or not. If you see me putting out a cover a day, it's only because I've got so much backlog of old content that's all takes, which I put a bunch of them out, or I'm just barely keeping up somehow, which I don't know how I do it some weeks. But I like to work on some harder things, and I also like the pressure of not having to do it every week, every weekend, putting out a lot of stuff. I took some breaks in the last year too, and I kind of enjoyed the breaks. So what I'm saying to you is coming to the plateau. 10,000 subs is a plateau, 1 million views is a plateau, 8 years doing this is a plateau. I'm thinking about ways to change it up but not lose all of you guys. Now, I have a very loyal group of fan base or community base, whatever you want to call it. I call it community. Some great drummers that I love talking to and I have personal relationships with, where we talk on the phone. And then I have some of you that just follow me every day, and I look forward to hearing from you on my videos. So I thank you all for all of you that are a part of that. Still, the vast majority of people that watch me are people that pick me up in the stream somewhere. Probably 85% of all my views are coming from outside of my subscribers. So 10,000 subscribers, I probably have less than 10%, or maybe it's 15% of my subscribers actually watch me regularly, and the rest are all people from the outside. And that's why my videos aren't getting huge amounts. You also notice that I don't do this other socials. I'm not doing Instagram. I stopped that about 2 years ago, and I haven't posted anything on Instagram in probably 2 years. I only go in there once in a while to see if anybody sent me a personal message, and then I might answer them or might not. So Instagram's a no. I don't post anything really on Facebook. I'm barely on Facebook, to be honest. So YouTube is kind of my thing. And unless I have people like James or Jimmy, trying to think of James's last name. He won my sub of the year last year, Jimmy. He posts usually with hearts and stuff. James Lyons. Unless I got guys like him that actually share my video on Facebook, which he does occasionally, I don't know how many of you ever actually share my videos to anywhere. So I don't even ask you to share. Please like and subscribe. I barely say that. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I don't know how much of a push I'm getting other places, and I'm not playing the game on the Facebook groups that are for drum cover guys. I know a lot of those guys, but I'm not in their world, and I don't spend a lot of time hanging there. I'm not a drum tuber. I didn't embrace that. I didn't embrace drum tuber. There was something about it I didn't, but I am friends with a couple of the big drum tubers like Rich Raw Dog and Kelly Cusimano. So, matter of fact, I'm hoping to see Kelly this month. He may come down to Florida. If he does, we're going to hang out for a few minutes. And by the way, that's what I love. I love hanging out with you guys. I had Jim Waggy, my friend Jim Waggy, was down here in December, and we talked, and I did a little interview with him. That was a fun time. Of course, I had Tate Berkey, youngster, great drummer, totally plays circles around me, dude. He's got more chops than I know what to do with. Plays Danny's stuff better than Danny today, to be honest, but Danny is the guy, still in both of our lives. We love Danny Seraphin. But I've had Tate down here. So, and I look forward to meeting more of you guys. If you guys come to Florida, hook up with me, call me up and say, hey, what are you up to? Can I drop in? Maybe we can work it out. So you guys are what makes this the reason I do this every day. It's really, I'm not doing this for the money because there's no money in this. I'm not doing this for being an influencer because I have no desire to be an influencer. Matter of fact, I'm more and more turned off by the whole monetization of this whole thing. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to try something new on monetizing this video. There's a place in the monetization section where you can uncheck middle videos. So I think what I'm going to do is just monetize it so the front end and the back end of the video get actually ads, and the rest in the middle are not going to have ads. So any of you guys watch my whole show, let me know if you see any ads in the middle, because I think if you uncheck this box, it doesn't put any ads in the middle. And if that's the case, that'll be great, because I think the ads in the middle are the ones that are most distracting. We can all deal with the ad up front or on the back end. You can bail out on it, but the ones in the middle you can't, and it kind of blows the flow of everything. So, but I'm trying things. I'm thinking about things. So, well, that's the questions I had for you. More Ask Earl Anything. Is that viable? What are some of the concepts we can go to? Okay. I talked about the Yacht Rock video. By the way, Yacht Rock on HBO. I say I definitely recommend that movie. Give it a watch. There's another movie I watched called Let There Be Drums. I just found this. My wife actually found it. She said, I'd watch that with you. It was about the Grateful Dead's son, the drummer. Let's see, Bill Kreutzmann, his name? Kreutzmann, I think is how he said it. Bill's son did a documentary on Let There Be Drums. And these are all drummers that, famous drummers and some of their kids. You know, they talked to some of the kids, like Keith Moon, and of course, Jason Bonham. It was a pretty cool documentary on drummers. Totally recommended for you all. That's one to watch. So, Let There Be Drums, based on the Sandy Nelson song, Let There Be Drums, by the way, which I've never heard in its entirety. I've heard pieces of it. I've never listened to the whole thing. I need to do that. Sandy Nelson was in the movie too. So was Taylor Hawkins. Okay. It was so ironic watching that movie because they talked a lot about the drug usage of the Grateful Dead and the excessiveness of some of these other artists. And Taylor Hawkins seemed so normal in that video, and for Taylor to go off to where he did and die the way he did was really sad to me. You know what I mean? Because he knew better. But the rock and roll lifestyle is something that some people are attracted to, you know? And I can tell you as a person who never got there, but wanted to be there for some reason, I feel blessed later in life that I actually had a great life without the rock and roll lifestyle. Jim Wagey and I were talking about that too, personally together. We were talking about some of those things. And he never experienced that either. But he's gotten to do his dreams, his dreams of recording his music and playing on his music and working with the best musicians in the world. Jim Wagey gets to do that, and I think Jim's a great guy. So check out Freedom Music Factory and check out his videos. But he's lived his dream that way. I've lived my dream by having a studio and working on people's albums and playing on people's albums, but never getting any of the pop of being a musician that was in that day and age, being a rock star. I never got to that, never attained those levels, never became a session musician in New York or LA or Nashville. I just became a drummer that ended up doing some of the things I always wanted to do. So I'm kind of blessed in that respect. But anyhow, two cool movies to watch: Yacht Rock, the Yacht Rock documentary on HBO, and Let There Be Drums. I just wanted a sip of coffee for some reason. At that moment, it seemed like I almost had a drinking problem. Got my lip. All right. I got some questions. Some questions from some old friends. I included one that, I gotta be honest, I just included one question here from back in the beginning of the year, which I think I answered, but I'm gonna start with it. It's from Jim Flies 2. I just wanted to keep Jim Hoovy in here. Jim's been traveling during the Christmas holidays. He was in Bangkok. Can't imagine that. Okay, he went to Thailand. He asked the question, he said, for Ask Earl Anything, what is your first drum set and when did you get it, and show a picture? And I think the day I did this, I was having a hard time finding a picture. I found a whole bunch of pictures. But I might have found the pictures. But I love talking about drums. My first drum kit was a blue Vistalite kit. Now, actually, my first drum kit, and I don't have this picture anywhere. It used to be at my mom's house. It's a picture of me behind one of those Noble Cooley paper kits you bought at Sears. So I got one of those at 5 years old. My Uncle Bobby sat down on Christmas Day and started beating on the thing and broke one of the heads. And then one of the girls that my mom's friends had, all of my mom's friends had 3 girls. My mom had a boy and a girl at the time, and then eventually another boy came. So we did not have 3 girls, but everybody else, my cousins, three girl cousins, another friend of hers, 3 girls, another friend of her, 3 girls, another friend, 3 girls. Well, one of the 3 girls' friends, one of the girls kicked the bass drum head in. So I had a big sticker on it from like Bermuda or something from my grandmother, where she kicked a hole into the bass drum head of the paper head. So that was my first drum kit, technically. But the blue Vistalite kit was my first drum kit, 12, 13, 16, 22-inch bass drum. I would eventually buy another Vistalite kit in 1997. It was green. I don't know if I've ever shown a picture of that. I'm going to show you a picture of the kit. The green Vistalite kit was the same Big Beat kit, and I picked it up for $400 at a little music store in Pennsylvania, Sharon, Pennsylvania. It was great. I ended up selling that for like $1,600 when I sold it. But it brought me back to my youth for a season. You know, I didn't have the concert toms. Eventually I got an 8 and a 10 concert tom to go with the 12, 13, 16, 5x14 snare, 14x22 kick. By the way, I've never had any power size kick drums in my whole life. All my kick drums have been 14x20, 14x18, 14x22. I even had a 14x24 once. You know, I had a Buddy Rich Marine Pearl Ludwig kit at one point in time in my life. That's another kit I don't have a picture of. I wish I did have a picture of that. If I can find it, I'll try to pull it up. But yeah, that was my first kit. The Vistalite kit's the first one. 15 years old, and I used that all the way into my sophomore year of college. When I bought this during the break between freshman and sophomore year, I bought the Gretsch kit. And this Gretsch kit's been here since 1979. So that's the way that works. All right. The next question comes from another old friend, Mike Fasano, the Mike Fasano, at the Mike Fasano. He basically corrected me on the Chris McHugh concert toms. I gave him a picture last time of Chris McHugh playing a concert tom kit, but it was a Craviotto kit, not the Gretsch kit I mentioned in the show. So he got me on that. Thank you, Mike, for getting me on things. Mike is famous for getting me scratching places, so I'm going to try not to scratch any places while I'm talking to you, Mike, right now. But his question was, what are your thoughts on the rebranding, rebirth of the Slingerland Drum Company through the Roland DW umbrella? Now, the only new Slingerland kits that I have seen has been on John J.R. Robinson's Facebook. And John J.R. Robinson has been a DW endorser for a while. He's great friends with John Good and all those guys at DW. And he was a Slingerland endorser back in the late 70s. He got his Slingerland endorsement through Danny Serafin. So I hope to see Danny Serafin playing one of these Slingerland kits soon. I don't think they're going to come out officially till this month, probably at NAMM. So the only Slingerland kit I've seen has been the one by John J.R. Robinson. Mike sent me a picture, and maybe I'll put that picture up, of a Slingerland snare drum. It was a blue color. It was a Radio King. It was going for an obscene amount of money, almost $2,000, I believe. Or maybe it was over $2,000. I'll put the actual number next to the picture when I put it in. But, you know, I said to Mike, I said, is this like a Noble Cooley? You know, supposedly it's better than the Noble Cooley. Now, Slingerland was the first steam bent shell snare drum. Noble Coolies were built on the steam bent concept. Okay, I don't think Noble Cooley was doing steam bent drums for those parade drums back in the day, but I could be wrong, because Noble Cooley's been building drums since the 1800s for parades, and for I think they were building them during the Civil War for some reason. I think they were building drums. So Noble Cooley's legacy goes deeper and further back than the modern drum set. But Noble Cooley was famous in the 60s and 70s for making those aluminum drum kits that were with the paper heads that I was talking about before, my first drum kit. And when Noble Cooley started making solid shell snare drums in the 80s, the end of the 80s, mid 80s, some of the early guys that picked up Noble Cooley snare drums were guys like Phil Collins, Joe Porcaro played one. A lot of guys started playing Noble Cooley snare drums because they were the snare drum to have in the studios. So a lot of the studio guys were buying Noble Coolies because the Radio Kings that you would find that were from the 30s and 40s that everybody wanted were all out around. So Slingerland must be making a brand new solid shell version of a snare drum that is perfect, which I would expect no less. By the way, vintage drums are not perfect. They all have issues. Today's drums that are built with better manufacturing techniques are probably perfect or closer to perfect. So I expect this new Slingerland kit to be pretty perfect, to be honest. And from what I can tell, it's using DW technology, not DW hardware. I think they went back to beaver tail lugs like the old Slingerland. They probably rebranded the hoops, but I haven't really looked close enough at the kit yet to know that what it exactly does. But I am really looking forward to NAMM this year to seeing if this new Slingerland kit comes out and what they spec out at on the Slingerland kit once the material starts to come out on it. But they were talking about doing this in 2020 and then COVID hit. That changed everything. It was actually 2019, I think they bought the name and they did a big thing at DW and had all their endorsers in, and they were talking about they bought the name for Don Lombardi, they bought the Slingerland name, and the plan was to rebrand it and bring that out by 2021. Well, now it's 2025. It took 5 years for them to do it because of COVID. And of course, Roland bought DW in the process too, so that's a whole nother part of this whole thing. But I'm sure it's going to be a cool kit. I look forward to seeing what Slingerland does. By the way, JR left Paiste Cymbals this year and he went to Istanbul Mehmet. So he is an Istanbul Mehmet endorser, not an Agop endorser. I think I said Agop last month. So it's pretty wild that JR has gone full circle back to the B20 cast cymbals again. Apparently they're making a line of cymbals for JR. So, I mean, you can't fault these guys for looking at security. You know what I mean? I mean, getting a signature product means if they keep making it for you, there's going to be money coming back into you somewhere. So that's got to be part of the game. And you know, the cool thing is these older guys still have an influence on the drumming world. They're still the drummers that people look up to. So JR is one of them. He's one of the greats. Anyhow, that's my take on that, Mike. Thanks for the question. The next question came, this is from a long time ago I found this question. This one was sitting in there for a long, long time. Apparently the guy's name is Rob Alexander. I don't even know if he's on there. This was 4 years ago. It was on the song You Make Me Feel Brand New. And somehow I found this question on December 18th. He said, could you possibly do a video explaining how you play along with music? I mean, how you sound gear is set up. I see you have in-ear monitors, maybe a click track without drums. Myself, I don't have mics or mixers. Whatever you are doing seems like a super system. Now, I have a whole series of videos on how I make drum covers in the DAW and everything else, but let's address the idea of the premises of playing along to drumless tracks and my approach to that. That's the way I wanted to take this question. There's a lot of technicalities with how you mic things and set up mics and run it into a DAW and the equipment you need, meaning an audio interface or a mixer with an audio interface, a DAW, digital audio workstation, that's what Logic is, the plugins to make the sounds, to mix everything. But let's talk about the drumless track, which I do in Moises, which I have 5 stems I usually work with. One of the stems being a metronome stem. So I do have a click track on almost all my tracks now. But I will tell you, when I'm recording drum covers, for the most part, I play along to the original drummer. Now, every once in a while, I'll take the original drummer out and play along to the click if I think the click is really, really locked. And the clicks aren't always locked. That's another problem that we have. So playing over the original drummer sometimes makes me lock in better than the click track. The click tracks also follow the original drummer perfectly, which means maybe the original drummer was playing with a metronome at 92, and that was the click track was 92. But when they played it in the studio, they pushed and pulled a little bit. As a matter of fact, the older music, the music from the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s was totally made on tape for the most part. So the click was dropped on the tape, and when you listen back in the studio, you were listening to see if you were flamming the click or what was going on with the click, where you sat on it, and if it felt good. And a lot of times, if it felt good, they kept it. Oh yeah, that's close. That's really good. The time's really solid. I like the way it feels. And that was all it took to keep it. But that didn't mean it was perfect on the grid time. Today, we've got so obsessed with on the grid in the DAW, Pro Tools and Logic, that when things are not on the grid properly, we fix things. We move. Well, let's just move that just a couple milliseconds. It's perfect now. That took the feel out of the drum parts. So all the tunes I play are mostly tunes that are not done with perfect clicks, not done on the grid. And when I have to do something that is that close to the grid, you will hear me flam a bit. Today I'm doing a song called Human Nature. Somebody asked me to play that song from Michael Jackson. That is completely a drum machine. There is no real drummer on that track. That is totally a Lindrum on that thing. I came up with a part on this kit for the song to give it a drum part, which is kind of close to the drum machine part, and I kept the drum machine part in. The reason I kept the drum machine part in, because I felt it needed that for the character of the song. So I have the drum machine part I'm playing over top of and then putting my drums on top of it. And there's a couple spots, not a lot of it, a couple spots where it would have done me I could have done myself a great service to go into the DAW and just move a couple bass drums just a little bit back. And all of a sudden it would have sounded like I was the greatest drummer in the world, perfect, with the drum machine. But my humanness comes out. You can find those problems and say, hey, you were a little ahead or a little behind, whatever it was. That's because that's what humans are. We're a little ahead, we're a little behind. We are not perfect. Imperfection is part of being a drummer. If you're a human drummer. Unless you're on the grid, unless you're Steven Slate drums, unless you're a Lindrum, that's a whole different ballgame. Anybody can be put on the grid and made lock perfectly. But then what do we lose? We lose something else, which usually has to do with feel and groove. So, and I'm not saying drum machines don't groove, but I say human drummers groove more. And we as drummers all want to be the best groove meisters we can possibly be. So, how do I record with the drumless track? I use, most of the time I play along with the drummer. Occasionally I play with the click track. And every once in a while I'll take both out and I'll just play along with the track and feel it with the track if I kind of know where it's going. Lot less today, but in the early days when I did some of my the video of the song Easy by the Commodores, I didn't have a click track and I took the drums out of that. And I played that pretty much freewheeling with the track, which today I'm thinking to myself, why did I do that to myself? I could have just left the drum track in. I think it was Trey B who said that once. Like, with extract stems, he said, I just play over the drum track with the drummer. And that made all the sense in the world to me. So I do that most of the time. That's my favorite way to do it, I guess. All right. that's that question from somebody who doesn't even care that I did a question. Because Boundary Waters, with a Z, asked that question a long, long time ago. So I'm answering that question today on the song You Make Me Feel Brand New by the Stylistics, which is another cover I need to revisit one of these days. It's just a great song. I love that song. All right. The next one comes from Vince Gomez, 1212. Longtime follower Vince. Vince loves to ask questions. Here's the question. Ask Earl Anything. So 5 years later, how is the classic Tama Classic hardware holding out? I'm thinking about getting the tom stand. In this video, you didn't have it yet. That's a piece in particular. That's the piece in particular. Thanks, Earl. Well, maybe I'll pan a shot over at my Gretsch kit for a second so you can see the little old Gretsch kit, which has all of the hardware right there in front of me over here. But I love the Tama Classic hardware, and I do use the tom stand, which is really just it's just a snare stand that goes higher, and it does fit a 10-inch tom. I find that tom stand to be so cool, such a cool thing to have, and it fit in the bag with everything. In the bag with the tom stand, 21 pounds. That's all I was carrying. It was not like carrying a trap case full of hardware that was like 50 to 100 pounds. I mean, no thank you anymore. I can't do that on my back. So I love the Tama Classic hardware. It's held up very well. I used it for quite a few years traveling back and forth for church gigs and occasionally a gig outside of a church. Vince, I recommend it, and get the tom stand. Tom stand works great. I've used the tom stand here to hold a tambourine. I've used it to hold an auxiliary snare occasionally. I love the snare stand on this. Sometimes I like it better than these basket stands that I have so many of that don't really adjust as well. The adjustments on that snare stand are great. The hi-hat stand is the thing that is the thing I like the least. But when you think about playing a gig, that hi-hat stand is fine for a gig for me. But I'd rather have a more heavy-duty hi-hat stand, so I use this Tama Speed Cobra 310, which, by the way, was the year that my wife bought me this, was the year I wanted that Tama Classic hardware, and she didn't catch what I was really after, and she bought me this hi-hat stand, which I love. Been using it a long time. By the way, I'm messing with my own version of the Benny Greb tambourine. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Meinl just came out with this whole new Benny Greb tambourine. It's mounted next to the hi-hat stand. And maybe I'll snap a picture of it for you so you can see my craziness. It's not quite there yet. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I have an Axis pedal. That's my son-in-law's, which has got the Velcro on the bottom so it doesn't move anywhere. And then I hooked the tambourine off of a little arm and a clamp, LP claw, and it works. But the problem is I don't have my hi-hat pedal at the same height as the Axis pedal. So that ability to have the pedal at the right height is part of my problem with me really using it. But I was goofing around with this the other day. So it can work. I actually like the idea. I saw the one that Greg Bissonette was using from LP. It was up like this, the tambourine, and it kind of shook the tambourine. And I was looking at buying one of those a couple years ago. I'm thinking about the Benny Greb one might be the way to go for me, though. I'd have to use a different pedal. But this is me goofing around with it. I'm always goofing around with stuff, trying to find a way to utilize it. I just couldn't make it groove. So right now it's not in the groove, so to speak. But Vince, from the Ask Earl Anything question of Tama Classic hardware, yes, works great. Yes, the tom stand works great. Yes, the hardware is worth it. If you don't like the look of it, which is what a lot of guys don't like, I would recommend the Crosstown hardware by Yamaha, which is aluminum. I don't own it. I have some friends who do, but they love it. So it all depends on what you're looking to do. Just be careful with the aluminum stands not denting up. That's always been my problem with the aluminum stands versus the Tama Classic, which is really made in the likeness of a Ludwig flat bass stand, is that the aluminum, if you throw it around, will get dented, and when it gets dented, it's going to be harder to keep in good shape. That's my point with it. But I've been thinking about buying a set of that hardware for the studio, getting a couple of those Crosstown boom stands and stuff and making it so I don't have to use these old, my stands are terrible. I don't know if you guys realize this. This is an old Yamaha piece. It's on a Tama stand right now, and this is part of a Tama stand and a Gibraltar stand over there, and that's a PDP, and this is a I don't know what that is. That could be Pearl. I've got so much stuff and so many different arms and stuff. I just throw stuff together and make it work. So my hardware makes no sense to anybody. I've been using it for some of this stuff for 30, 40 years. That's all I can say about hardware. But my Tama Classic is great. I may set it up on this kit soon and go back to 3 cymbals. But I've been digging the bigger cymbal setup, so that's part of it. All right, my next question comes from Mickey F3730. Mickey, thank you, Mickey, for your daily watching things. Do you tune your snare down to the mid-range prior to placing a big fat snare ring on it to get that deep fat sound? All right, when I put a big fat snare drum ring on the snare drum, I do not detune it, usually. Now, I won't say always. The operative word is usually. If you really wanted to get big and fatter, fat, you may have to detune. But for the most part, when I put it on that 5-inch Ludwig and it just fattens it up so much, I usually don't detune anything. Now, I will tell you something with the Ludwig drums. There's a couple detuning tricks. I'll show you this detuning trick today. I've done this on a video about Black Beauty snare drums, by the way, too. Matter of fact, this is already detuned. If you detune one lug on a drum, then by the way, this lug that's closest to me is totally loose. You detune one lug, it changes the whole drum. So I'm just going to tune up this lug. This is one turn. That's higher. Another half a turn. Changes everything. So, by the way, I'm using on this one drops. This is the 200 gram drops. I did a whole video on these things. I have a question about that. I'll talk about this in a minute, but snare drum without the drops. Wide open. By the way, a lot of guys ask this question about getting a great snare drum sound. You can play your drum wide open and get a great snare drum sound for a recording. But here's the thing. If you're not consistent in your hits and you hit some rim shots, it could really mess that drum up. And this is why I use the rings a lot, or this muffler here, this drops muffler, because here's the thing. If I'm not hitting rim shots, there's a little bit of a ring, but as soon as I start barking the rim shot with it, there's a lot more ring. And that ring sometimes is really hard to get out of the track. So one of the things you see me trying to do lately, and those of you that have been following me a long time, remember the days when I used to play back of the stick. When I played back of the stick, I played more rim shots. Now I'm playing front of the stick, and I'm being decisional to hit the middle of the drum. Versus rim shot. So, if you're hitting the middle of the drum, you're going to get a nicer sound. It's a more pleasant sound, and it can be just as powerful. But if you're not hitting that consistently, then having something like a ring just takes all that buzz out. And if you're hitting rim shots, the nasty rim is gone, and it fixes the drum. So what I'm saying to you is, that's why the ring works. It gets rid of that nasty ring. But if you're a great technique and you're hitting the middle of the drum, you can play the drum wide open in a studio setting. Now, of course, there's moon gel, and this thing called drops. These are great, by the way, these drop things. This is like putting a wallet on your drum. You hear it? This will give you a little bit of the bark, because it's not the ring, it's muting all around the whole drum, because a circle mutes the whole snare head. This is just muting in one area. So, see if you hit rim shots, you can get a kind of a nasty sound. Now, we're not going through microphones, compression, EQ, or any of the stuff that goes into recording something into a DAW, but you're hearing the camera mic and you are hearing the sound of that drum. So one of the reasons why you mute snare drums is you'd want to get rid of the nasty ring. If you got great technique, you might not need a ring or anything, but sometimes you need it for that dramatic effect. So, Mickey, I don't, for the most part, detune. Now, back to I tune this drum up. There's a way on a Ludwig snare drum to get the Phat thing without putting a ring on it. So, let me show you. Wide open again. Now I'm going to use the technique I normally use. I don't normally do the one next to me, but it does work if you do the one next to you. I'm going to do the one across from me. All right, watch this. So that took it down, and if I need it really down, I take two of them out. There we go, I found it. So, you got it, but as soon as you put the pad on it, now you got the Phat thing. That's really doing it, isn't it? Anyhow. Anyhow, fun with a drum key. For the most part, when I put a ring on it, I don't detune, but if I don't like the sound, I will detune. So it's an either or thing. It's not an I always do or I always detune. I don't. All right. The last question, okay, I believe. Oh, I have two questions from two people. They're both about the same thing. So this is both on the drops dampening system. Dana Romero said, thanks for the info. I can hear the difference, especially towards the end. Do you like them? And my other question came from Erno Roffel, which is Joel. It's Joel. I'll just say Joel. Joel says, love the song. You did a great job. How do you like those drops? I've been on the fence about getting them. So, let me give you the review of the drops a week later. First off, I bought 3 more of these, so I'm using them on the concert tom kit right now. The 60 grams. They work great on toms. I like the 60 grams on the toms or the 40s. The 40s might be a little light for some of you, so I would recommend if you really want to feel it, you get the 60s. Now, for the snare drums, my friend Jeff Holden from the Music Place, Jeff uses the 120s, he told me. And I think the 120s probably work great. They have a little bit more up gate. These are like putting a wallet on your drum. They're great on the floor toms though. And they do work on both floor toms. So here's the 14. Really kills it. Where the 120 kind of kills it. The 120 pops a little bit. So, and that's the concept of these drops, is that they come off the drum and they mute. They come up and mute, come up and mute. So, see how it kind of raises a little bit. So, bottom line for Joel and for Dana, I like them. Let's talk about that's the pros. I like them. They work. The cons, the cost. I've said it before. I said it in the day I did the drum video on the drops. You can make these yourself if you want to. Put some beads in them, or quarters, or pennies, or whatever weight you need to put inside a piece of felt, sew it around, and then tape it on. You'll get the same effect. That's what Paul Line did in that Vic Firth video, by the way. I think they're worth it for the money. I think they're going to last longer, but I'll know in a year if they lasted long enough if I ever break one of these rubber things. They look like they're durable. They look like they're fun to take places. All I would say to you is if you're like bringing them to a church, to mute the drums at church, make sure you bring them home. Because the next drummer will take them off the kit and they will bring them home and they won't bring them back. I can tell you that right now. I've left moon gels on kits and the next time I come to the kit, the moon gels are gone. It's like the drummers are not nice in church. You would assume they're nice. Oh, they're just going to leave it there. No, they take them off and they use them somewhere else. So if you're going to buy these for church to drop on your, have on your kit, a 40, a 60, a 120, and a 200 for a 5-piece kit at church, they're worth it. Right now they're on sale. They were on sale last week for like $60 versus the $100 price. I'd say they're worth it at $60. But in actuality, I don't have one of these near me. But I have these little Rogers mufflers that have like a little muffle and they sit on the top and they kind of go on it. They're an external muffler. Pearl makes them. They're $20 each. Well, this is just as good as that Pearl one, and this is probably about $20 if you look at it for a kit. So $20 each is a little bit more money than you want to spend. I think I spent for the 60s, I bought 3 of them for $36. So that's $12 each. Not bad. The bigger ones should be a little bit more. So, they're comparable. They're not Moon Gel. Moon Gel's much cheaper. And then, of course, you can buy those gels from Amazon super cheap, but they're going to leave you and you have to buy more. So it really comes down to what you want, what you're willing to spend money on. But as far as I'm concerned, I think they work. They work well. They're great for my studio, and that's where they're going to stay. And I have a set now. So I like them. My friend Jim Waggy said to me that he tried them. He didn't think they were that cool. So I get it. Some guys don't dig them. It depends on how you get them too. Now, I got them as a gift, so they're a huge value to me. So that first gift was the big deal. I wasn't going to buy it for myself. I wasn't even going to tell anybody to buy it for me. That's the funny thing about me. I wasn't going to say, hey, buy me these things are expensive. I did tell my daughter the year before to buy me the big fat snare drum with the hole in it. And I bought one of the big fat snare drums without the hole in it. And I realized I didn't like the one without the hole in it. I bought that years ago. So the big fat snare drums I've asked for. And I don't know if you guys remember these. They were called tortillas. They were colorful round mutes, okay? They were colorful. There was a guy making them. They weren't cheap. They were like $20 each too. So when you look at a big fat snare drum's 20-something bucks, and you look at those drum tortillas were like 20, $25. Truthfully, this mute's right in the ballpark of the price. So if you look at it that way, am I willing to spend it? It's great. Now, if you want it for the snare drum, you want the wallet effect, this is great wallet effect. It's worth it. So it's all how you look at things, right? Anyhow, that's the bottom line to the whole thing. I like them. I'm using them. I'm going to keep on using them. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. And thank you for watching Ask Earl Anything. This is a show where your questions make the show. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a great day. And I'll talk to you next month. Please give me your ideas, your thoughts about some of the stuff I said early on. Take care.